Essay 3. Why is Charles Darwin more known and recognized than Alexander von Humboldt? This is a very interesting question since both men contributed in a big way in science revolution, demonstrating a shift of paradigm that changed the whole world's visions of science. A shift of paradigm is when new theories explain better than the other ones, so they are always in constant change. So, they open up new approaches that weren't considered before by scientists. This paradigm reflects in Humboldt's and Darwin's work. Accordingly to Thomas Kuhn, or they were simply improving their acquired knowledge until they finally caused a break with previous knowledge in order to produce a brilliant new theory. To answer the question that was planted before, it is important to highlight essential information that can lead us to what I consider to be the reason of why Darwin is more known nowadays than Humboldt. So, it is important to mention the things both of them had in common, the difference, and then answer the question. Alexander von Humboldt and Charles Darwin were scientists who contributed to science in biology's field. Both had an incredible passion and curiosity in studying and observing nature and vegetation and were interested in volcanoes. Humboldt more than Darwin in that aspect. Since Humboldt was born first, he had a big influence in Darwin's work. Actually, Darwin considered him as his inspiration. It is said that an emerging scientist stands on the shoulders of a previous giant of science. And this happened to Darwin with Humboldt. In many of his works, he recognizes and mentions Humboldt's contributions to his knowledge. This shows us how Darwin idolized Humboldt. When Darwin started his expedition, there already existed knowledge given by the oldest travelers gathered in their previous expeditions. As it is explained in Barsaga's model, which is characterized by the visit of Western Europeans to the new land with the objective of examining their fauna, flora, and land conditions so they can take that information back to Europe. For example, Alexander von Humboldt came and examined the volcanoes, especially the Chimborazo. He believed that it was the biggest mountain in the world. So we can see that he lived in that time when great explorations took place. All of those readings awoke Darwin's desire to travel, so he decided to make his own scientific voyage, especially to South America, where Humboldt had focused his work for a long time and ended up fascinated by this land. It can be seen that both of them had a lot of interest in South America because they made a lot of contributions that came up as a result of their study of this land. Humboldt's writing influenced so much in Darwin that his own sister, who read both of them, said that Darwin had the same style as Humboldt and that he needed to create his own. The particular similarity of their way of writing was characterized by showing a sensibility in poetry that Darwin learned from Humboldt. When Darwin started to write, Humboldt had the opportunity to read some of Charles' works, and he was impressed and admired by his talent. So this led us to know that admiration became mutual. In the matter of fact, when Humboldt was 70, he recognized that his contribution was going to be eclipsed, and that Darwin was the future scientist. Until now, it is obvious that both of them had many things in common, but they also had their differences and discrepancies. To start, Humboldt specialized more in botany, anthropology, and cartography. On the other hand, Darwin had more interest in zoology and geology. This can probably be one of the reasons why Darwin was more known. Maybe people paid more attention to Darwin's fields than Humboldt's. But this cannot be the only reason. There has to be more. Humboldt was born before Darwin, When he came back from his expedition in America, Darwin was not even born yet. This fact places Humboldt way behind of our time, and people tend to concentrate in what is behind them. It is kind of a matter of how generations pass through the time and many things hold back in the past. It is very possible that in the future, new generations will forget about Darwin or won't give the same importance as we do on his work. It is important to mention that they had a big difference in their age, so it was an asymmetrical relationship. That could have influenced in Darwin's expectations of Humboldt. Getting back to the idea of the discrepancies, literature shows that Humboldt and Darwin had contact with each other and that they had the opportunity to meet. What is very curious about this is that Darwin was not very thrilled after his meeting with Humboldt, probably because he had more expectations. There is not so much information about this meeting. It can be assumed that something, we don't know what, happened that caused this disappointment. Thus, in the letters they wrote to each other, the information was mainly about their scientific contribution and interest in biology. But other than that, maybe they did not have so many things in common in personal terms. Also, Darwin did not agree or was not so satisfied with some of Humboldt's contributions, like in the translation of Pritchard, saying that some parts were admirable, but it was also too repetitive of his earlier work, Voyage aux regions equinoxiales du Nouveau Continent. Finally, another incident that can influence in favor of Darwin's recognition is that in the same year that Humboldt passed out, Darwin's contribution of the origin of the species came out, and in this moment happened what Kuhn referred as a paradigm shift, marking a great evolution in science, giving his theory of natural selection, which led to the passage from classical natural history to the new science of biology. In conclusion, even if Humboldt and Darwin had many things in common, like their way of writing, their interest in nature, and their mutual admiration, Darwin is more recognized in the present than Humboldt because of many reasons. First, Darwin's contributions are more close to us in time than Humboldt's, even if both of them contributed in a huge way in science. Second, Darwin's theory was led to a paradigm which changed what was seen as a natural history of the science to the science of biology. Saying this information and it causes a big saying this information and it causes the biggest impact in people's attention. Finally, in my opinion, I think that the admiration Darwin had on Humboldt turned around when Humboldt started admiring more to Darwin, admitting that his contributions were going to be eclipsed and that Darwin will be the future scientist. If he thought of that, why wouldn't we think the same?